Hello and welcome back once again to the Wrestling Group. I'm your host, as always, Ryan, and today we are going to be doing our predictions video for AEW Wrestle Dream, which is on tonight. And if you're like me and watching in the UK, it's on 1 o'clock tomorrow morning. I won't be watching it live. I'll wait and then get up and watch it at a normal, decent time, rather than staying up, because AEW pay-per-views, I mean, from the pre-show right the way through, it's probably going to be about 6 hours long. So I don't fancy staying up from 1 o'clock till about 7 a.m. So, without further ado, like I say, there's 13 matches on the show, all in all, if you include the pre-show. So let's get into it and do some predictions. So we'll start with the pre-show, and we have Eddie Kingston and Hook are teaming together to face a to-be-announced tag team. And this one's pretty simple. With it being a TBA tag team, it's probably going to be either a very, very low-rated tag team or two random jobbers thrown together. It's pretty simple. Eddie and Hook are going to pick up the victory. And they've said that they're going to start going towards the AEW tag team titles. So, a couple of victories is what they need to do that. And I believe they will get one today. So we'll move on from that one. And FTR versus Jet Speed. Again, another two tag teams. These have had some good back and forth over the last couple of months. FTR still one of the best tag teams in the world right now. Jet Speed, they've come together as a tag team over this past year, and they've been really, really good. In fact, it's probably been the best thrown together tag team, I'd say, since maybe the Acclaimed. They're really, really good. These Jet Speed and, of course, our tag team champions, Brody, though, fantastic. Put together tag teams, if you like, two singles wrestlers come together as great tag teams. Really into this one. I think it's going to be good, but I'd expect FTR to get the win, because I feel like we're going to get FTR versus Cope and Cage again at some point. So they need to pick up another victory to get them some momentum to go against Cope and Cage again. So I'm going to pick FTR to pick up the victory there. And we'll move on to Harley, Cameron and Willow Nightingale. They are teaming together against Megan Bayne and Penelope Ford. This is a women's tag team match. Obviously, we've got the women's tag team titles that are going to be announced. Well, they've been announced, but they're going to be, coming to AEW pretty soon. So we're going to start seeing, obviously, some of the women's wrestlers start to team up, and that as they start to take shape of a tag division. So this is going to be an interesting one. Obviously, we normally see Harley Cameron with Chris Statlander, who obviously used to be tag team partners with Willow at one point. So obviously we've got Chris as the champ. She's not obviously going to be on the pre-show. She's got her match later on. So we've got the teaming of Harley and Willow. They will face Megan and Penelope. I'd say Megan and Penelope would get the victory for the simple fact is I see them actually being a team going into this AEW women's tag division. But then, Willow and Harley could easily be a team and could then obviously get Willow and Chris back together at some point. I expected Chris and Harley to be a team going into the women's tag division, or Chris and Marina Shafir, depending on whether she joined the Death Riders or not. But I didn't expect Chris Statlander to be the AEW's women's champion. I mean, she still can. There's no doubt that she can still obviously go in to the tag tournament when they finally announce her, even as the AEW women's champ. But I feel like we could actually see Harley and Willow as a tag team. So I'm going to pick, I'm going to pick Harley and Willow for this one. For the simple fact is, I think that I feel like it's a stronger team, isn't it? Penelope is not as good as Harley Cameron, I don't think. I know Penelope's been wrestling a lot longer, but I can't take to her. I'm going to go for Willow and Harley to get the win. Then we move on to Roderick Strong. He is teaming with the Conglomeration. Obviously, his tag team partner in Kyle O'Reilly from Paragon. They're going to team with Orange Cassidy and Ishii. And they're going to take on the Death Riders. Obviously, this is a 4-on-4. So we've got Death Riders members Claudio Castagnoli, Pac, Wheeler Yuta, and of course, Daniel Garcia. Pretty simple, this one for me. I'm going to pick that the Death Riders are going to pick up the victory for the simple fact that they're a well-oiled machine. They've been teaming for a while now. Obviously, Garcia's not long just joined. And Roderick Strong really doesn't want to be part of the conglomeration. He wants to obviously continue just tag team with Kyle O'Reilly. He's got no interest in team with the others. So I feel like that's going to play a part here. And the Death Riders will capitalise. Obviously, they're more than likely going to have Marina Shafir in the corner as well. And that is not a bad addition to have in your corner. So that is all of the pre-show. So then we'll move on to the main card. So Mercedes Moné retained her CMLL championship last night in Arena Mexico. She then put out a open challenge for her TBS championship on Wrestle Dream. Now, she said any champion can challenge her, which makes it interesting. So I feel like she's going to goad them into putting their belt on the line as well. You know, she's 10 title Moné right now. She's on par with Ultimo Dragon's record. So she obviously wants to surpass that. And the fact that she's asked for a champion to step up makes you think that, you know, she's going to go them into putting their title on the line as well. And then we could end up with her with 11 titles, of course, then surpassing Ultimo Dragon. She's just broke one record today. She now is the longest reigning TBS champion in history. You know, going 1 or 2 days better than the former record holder, which is obviously WWE sports entertainment star Jade Cargill. You know, she had the Goldberg treatment in AEW and faced an absolute crap ton of jobbers. And then when she finally faced a real wrestler in Chris Statlander, she lost. Whereas Mercedes Moné has been having some of the best matches of her career. It's a hard one for this. It could be Shiori, who's obviously the IWGP Women's Champion. No, she only just won it last Monday at King of Pro Wrestling. She could answer the challenge. You've got, you know, you've got all sorts. You've got Indy Hartwell, who's obviously the House of Glory champion. You've got Athena, who's obviously the Ring of Honor Women's Champion. You've got Mina Shirakawa, who's the interim Ring of Honor Television Champion. You've even got Marina Shafir. It's probably not going to be, but she's the Defy Women's Champion. You know, there's so many different champions there. Obviously, no one from WWE is going to come across. No one from TNA either. Probably not GCW. But, I mean, there's a good couple of chances there. I think maybe... I'd have said Mina Shirakawa, but I don't think she's going to drop her belt to Mercedes, although the Ring of Honor television title, maybe. Do you know what? No, I'm going to say Shiori's going to come across, even though she's only just won the IWGP title. I think she's going to turn up, and Mercedes will face and defeat her. I think whoever it is, anyway, Mercedes is going to pick up the victory and her 11th championship. So move on next to a match that we've seen a couple of times over the last few months. It's the Hurt Syndicate, and that, of course, is Bobby Lashley, Shelton Benjamin, and MVP, and they all take on The Demand, which is, of course, Ricochet and the Gates of Agony. So we've seen these face at the last pay-per-view, where The Demand were the ones that picked up the victory, obviously pinning MVP, which then had MVP questioning, you know, whether it's time for him to hang up his boots or whether he should continue as part of, obviously, Hurt Syndicate. He doesn't wrestle nowhere near as much as what he used to. Obviously, he is the weak link of the faction. You know, you've got Bobby and Shelton, who are absolute machines. And then we had the rematch, which was a really, really good hardcore match on Dynamite, which the Hurt Syndicate won. So, I mean, the one apiece, this is the rubber match to see, you know, who wins the overall. I find it hard on this one because I want to say Hurt Syndicate for the simple fact that then they can push on and, you know, Bobby and Shelton can then start getting back together as a tag team, pushing into the, you know, the tag division again maybe, or even go off as single stars. But, you know, they move on and they look strong and then they go forward, you know, because they've been booked pretty strong since they've come into AEW. But then on the flip side, you know, there's been obviously talk of MVP stepping aside and just being more of a manager, and then them bringing in maybe one or two younger guys into the Hurt Syndicate. They are all pushing 50 now. So that'd be quite cool if they did that. Obviously, him getting pinned again against Ricochet and Gates of Agony would open that door up. Plus the demand, obviously, they've not been together as a team too long. So this would be their first end of a rivalry, if you like. The first rivalry they've had, obviously, has been Hurt Syndicate. Obviously, Ricochet originally wanted to join them. They turned it down, and then he's gone and found himself two guys instead. And then they've, made it their mission to go after the Hurt Syndicate on Ricochet's behalf. Plus, obviously, if they then pick up the victory, they could go for the AEW Trios title somewhere down the line. So I'm going to go with the demand. As much as I love the Hurt Syndicate, I feel like this is what they're going to do. I feel like the demand are going to pick up the victory. MVP's going to recruit one or two new guys to join the Hurt Syndicate that are a bit younger. And then we'll probably see Bobby push on up into the world title picture. And maybe even Shelton too. So we move on next to Jamie Hayter versus Tekla. Now this is an interesting one. Jamie Hayter's been booked quite strong since returning to AEW. A lot of fans are still in her corner. She's got a good fan base behind her. And Tekla has made waves since she's come over from Stardom. She's joined up with Julia Hart and Sky Blue. They've become the Triangle of Madness. A name which is actually starting to grow on me. I think they should just call it Madness in the end, because then they can obviously recruit other members. Tekla for me is a absolute star in the making. If they do it right, she could easily be an AEW Women's Champion in the future, and not too long into the future as well. I could really see them pushing Tekla straight away and getting the AEW Women's Championship. She'd be a great heel to go against, obviously, Chris Statlander, who is a face and our current AEW Women's Champion. So I'm backing Tekla to pick up the victory against Jamie Hayter. So we move on next to one of our championship matches, and it's going to be a Brody Doe. That is Brody King and Bandito, and they are facing Don Callis members Kenosuke Takeshita, IWGP World Heavyweight Champion Kenosuke Takeshita, and of course the AEW Unified Champion Kazuchika Okada. They are going to be facing for the AEW Tag Team titles. Now again, this is another one that some people might think is quite easy to book. Now, my original idea was that Takeshita and Okada can't work together and get the job done against Brody, though, which then starts to cause the issues between them, which will then eventually lead to Okada versus Takeshita for the IWGP World Heavyweight Championship. But on the flip side, I think maybe we could get them as tag champs for a couple of weeks, a month, 2 months, maybe. My idea is to get them to Wrestle Kingdom and to main event the Kingdom, Takeshita versus Okada for the world title at Wrestle Kingdom in Japan. I mean, there's no reason why they can't become tag team champions first. Don Callis has been desperate to get the AEW tag team titles within, obviously, his family for a couple of years now, including when Will Ospreay was part of the Don Callis family for a short while. It was Will Ospreay and Kyle Fletcher tried their hardest to become tag team champions, and then obviously when that didn't happen was when Fletcher turned on Ospreay. I mean, could we see a repeat of that, of Okada and Takeshita not getting the job done and then Okada turn on Takeshita? I think eventually it's going to go that way, with Okada turn on Takeshita and him being kicked out of the Don Callis family. He will become a top face, and a top face in both AEW and New Japan Pro Wrestling. God knows, New Japan definitely need a big star right now. It's hard. I want to keep to my original idea, but I absolutely love Kazuchika Okada. He's one of my favourite Japanese wrestlers, if not my favourite Japanese wrestler of all time. Maybe second to Minoru Suzuki, but he's definitely up there. And then, of course, you got Kenosuke Takeshita, who for me is basically Okada's replacement. He's going to be the next ace of Japan, if you like. the replacement for Tanahashi, the replacement for Okada, the replacement for Tetsuya Naito. We've needed a big guy to come in with a lot of potential to become a world champion and basically take New Japan by storm. Takeshita, for me, is that guy. Do you know what? I'm going to do this as... I'm going to go with my heart over my head on this one, and I'm booking Takeshita and Okada to pick up the tag team titles, and then somewhere down the line, they drop the belts, and that's where we get the turn. Because to get from here till January is a couple of months, isn't it? Well, we're October now, so we've probably got like maybe 2 more pay-per-views to go to get there. Up next for the TNT Championship, we have Kyle Fletcher versus Mark Briscoe. Mark has repeatedly gone for the TNT Championship, and he's not yet won a title in AEW. Obviously, he's won the Ring of Honor Championship under the AEW banner, but he's not actually held an AEW Championship. The TNT title is one he's had his eyes on for a while. Obviously, Fletcher and Briscoe now have faced off 4 times previous. I think they're 2 apiece, aren't they? Including, obviously, that match that shocked the world when Mark Briscoe beat Kyle Fletcher in the Continental Classic. But for me, I don't think Briscoe picks up the victory here. I think Kyle Fletcher is going to hold this title for a good while yet. And I think when he does eventually drop it, it's going to be just someone else up and coming. Briscoe's been around for a long while now. Up next, we have Jurassic Express tag teaming together once again, and they are going to be taking on the Young Bucks. They have faced off a good few times over the years. Obviously, with the AEW Tag Team Championships a few years back. We've got the new and improved version of Jungle Jack Perry, as he's now being called. And we've got the Young Bucks, who are, down on their luck at the moment. Jack Perry, obviously, he's not with them anymore. Carter's not with them anymore. Kenny Omega's off doing his own thing. And Hangman's obviously the world champ. They've got no one really on their side. John Moxley just picks and chooses when he uses the Young Bucks. So they're pretty much on their own at the moment. See, my thing was Jurassic Express, pick up the victory, and then go towards the AEW tag team titles once again. But maybe it's not just that simple, because there's $500,000 on the line. Now, we've seen recently when the Young Bucks have money on the line, they up their game because they are the broke Bucks at the moment. They've lost all their power in AEW as the EVPs. They've lost their status. They've lost that extra income. Lost the power to be able to do certain things. And, we've seen they won money. They changed their ways a little bit. They managed to get a better entrance again, some fireworks, a better mode of transport. And then, obviously, Nick gambled it all away. They are back to having nothing. So could the Young Bucks actually pick up the victory to continue this on and off, up and down phase where they have money and then they don't? Or could, obviously, Jurassic Express beat them and go towards the AEW tag team titles once again? Because when they were together a few years back, they only actually held the AEW tag team championships one time. But yeah, that's who I'm going with. That's my pick. Jurassic Express are going to pick up the victory against the Young Bucks. Up next, we have newly crowned AEW Women's Champion Kris Statlander, and she is going against the best AEW Women's Champion in history in Timeless, Toni Storm. They're going to face, for the very first time, it seems mad to say, but for the very first time in singles, in one-on-one action, Kris Statlander and Toni Storm are going to face off for the Women's Championship. No face, no heel. Storyline here, it's who is better than who. Kris Statlander obviously won the AEW Women's Championship in a fatal 4-way match. She hasn't beaten the champ, or the former champ as it is now, in a one-on-one, so she wants to prove to herself that she can beat the best in Timeless, Toni Storm. And obviously, Toni, being the former champ, gets that chance to say, let's do this. See if you can beat me one-on-one. For me, this one's pretty simple. Kris Statlander picks up the victory and retains the AEW Women's Championship. I'd be very, very surprised if they put the belt back on Tony so soon. Up next is Hangman Adam Page versus Samoa Joe, the AEW Men's World Championship. Obviously, Hangman Adam Page is in the second run as AEW World Champion, and Samoa Joe is a former AEW World Champion. I know a few people have questioned why these two are facing each other. Yes, we have a lot of injuries right now in the top men's division. You've got Jay White out with an injury still. Will Ospreay's out for probably a year. Swerve Strickland's still out for a while. So there's quite a few big names that are injured right now. But of course, don't forget, Samoa Joe is a former AEW World Champion in his own right and one of the best of all time. I'll always say Samoa Joe is a great wrestler. So it might have been a bit crap the storyline to get us here, but no doubt this is going to be a great match. Both men are going to leave it all out in the ring. Samoa Joe has clearly said to Hangman Adam Page, "You have yet to beat me." So this will be interesting. Will we see the ops in Samoa Joe's corner? Neither one of Powerhouse or Shibata are on the card tonight. So could we very well see them in Samoa Joe's corner? Could that play a part in the outcome? For me, Hangman Adam Page picks up the victory and retains the AEW World Championship. I think he's going to have it for a good few months yet. Probably until MJF decides to come back and invoke his AEW Championship match. So that leaves us with just one match, and the reason why I've left this last is because, one, I believe it should go on as the main event. I know a lot of people think the World Championship should always main event pay-per-views, and normally I'd agree. This match is bigger than the AEW World Championship. It's been brewing now for well over a year. It's Darby Allin versus Jon Moxley one more time. This time, though, it's different. It's in an I Quit match. It's only the third I Quit match in AEW's history. The first being Jon Moxley beating Eddie Kingston back when he was AEW World Champion. I think was it the first run he had as champ. Then we had Adam Copeland beating Christian Cage in an I Quit match for the TNT Championship. And now we have, of course, Darby Allin versus Jon Moxley. So this version of Jon Moxley is a lot more ruthless and brutal compared to the original version of Jon Moxley that faced Eddie Kingston. He's part of the Death Riders. He's the leader of Death Riders. He's basically the leader of AEW in a way, you know what I mean? He's literally been this past year since they cut the cancer out, the cancer being that of CM Punk and Aleister Black and Rusev and the likes of them, the WWE superstars that, just wants to be sports entertainers, and we're just here until WWE picked them back off. Jon Moxley has reshaped and remolded AEW in his own image. It's a case of if you cannot step off, then you will step aside. And, it's brought out some of the best in AEW's original wrestlers, and even some of the ones that have come over since, they've managed to step up their game too. I mean, look at the stuff that some of them are doing, especially like, Daniel Garcia recently, he stepped up since joining the Death Riders. Darby Allin is absolutely insane. I can't see a way that Darby says I quit. On the flip side, Jon Moxley is pretty much just as insane, and I can't see a way where Jon Moxley quits either. I feel like for this one, it's a 50-50 toss of a coin on who you think is going to win. I feel like the only way either one of them gets the other one to quit is by other people being in play. So Jon Moxley could do something to Sting, maybe, or Bryan Danielson, which would cause Darby Allin to give up. Or Darby could do something to maybe Marina Shafir, or Daniel Garcia, or Wheeler Yuta, someone like that, maybe. To then make, or Renee Paquette, even if they bring that into the story, which I can't see Darby putting his hands on Renee though, to try and get Jon Moxley to quit. I've gone back and forth on this one for a long time, but I feel like no matter what happens, every time I go into a pay-per-view, he's my favourite wrestler. I can't back against him. Jon Moxley. I'm picking Jon Moxley for the victory. I might be the only one in my household that picks Jon Moxley. My wife, my daughter, my son, massive Darby Allin fans. I am too, to be fair. I am a massive Darby Allin fan. I do love Darby. I think he's great. I think he's exactly the type of wrestler I'd be excited to watch as a child. You know, obviously I'm excited to watch him now, but like, he's got that Jeff Hardy, like, you know, he's got that Jeff Hardy like charisma about him, hasn't he? That, you know, death-defying wrestler. But in this case, I've got to back my favourites, and I've got to go Jon Moxley for the victory. So there you have it. A little bit longer than what I was expecting, but it is a stacked card. Obviously, WrestleDream is on tonight. Feel free to leave your predictions in the comment section below so we can compare who's right and who's wrong. And as always, don't forget to leave us a like, drop us a comment, and of course, if you haven't already, subscribe to the WrestleDream Wrestle Group today.